Yet another gruesome killing of an Indian has been reported in the United States. In a heart-wrenching incident, dancer Amarnath Ghosh was shot dead in St. Louis, Missouri. The incident was brought to light by actress Devlena Bhattacharjee, who urged the Indian Embassy and the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, to investigate investigation into the matter. The Indian consulate in Chicago condoled the demise of Amarnath and said they are following up on the investigation with the police. His killers have not yet been identified. However, this is not the only attack, remember, on an Indian in the US in the recent past. Remember Janvi Kandula, the 23-year-old, was hit by a police car in January last year. Recently, the police officer who hit her was let off with only a fine of $5,000. As many as 5 other Indians have been killed or attacked in the US in the first 2 months of 2024. And of course, these incidents are very, very concerning. Joining us at this point is Robindra Sachdev, International Affairs expert. Also with us is Pathikrit Pain, International Affairs expert. Mahesh Sachdev, former diplomat, joins us live. Major General JKS Parihar, defense expert, is also with us on the broadcast. Robindra, let me begin with you first on what you make of this latest shocker coming in from the United States. Robindra Sachdev, can you hear me? Okay, I think we've lost his connection there. But Pathikrit Pain, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm there.
Pathikrit, you know, this is a very, very disturbing incident. What do you make of it, and what do you believe is the motive?
Uday, good evening, good afternoon, first of all. See, I think it's a very disturbing trend. We need to first of all understand and probe as to whether this surge has happened, especially after there has been a sort of certain kind of challenges so far as Indo-US relationship is concerned, especially on the Pannu issue and a few other issues, including India's foreign policy now becoming far more independent and resilient than perhaps of American liking. While I would not directly like to cast aspersion on America for these killings, but if you look at the trend of the deaths, a large number of mysterious deaths in the last 2 months especially, it is not something normal. I'm not saying that America per se as a society is a very peaceful society. Violence of different types, whether it is homicide or whether it is gun violence, has been a sort of a norm than an exception. But generally Indians who go to study there or work, they prefer to avoid any kind of trouble, knowing well that they have to earn money, and most actually prefer to save money and go back to their own country. So in that kind of a circumstance, some of these deaths in the recent past, especially the death of a classical dancer, I mean, these are extremely disturbing. Unfortunate, no doubt, but disturbing as well as to whether it is a new trend that is coming up globally, where you want to, settle your scores with India, for India becoming far more resilient on, and not often listening to your diktats. If targeting individual Indians, vulnerable Indians abroad, is becoming some kind of a new norm. There has been incidents of racism in the past in many countries of the world. We have seen in certain parts of Europe. We have seen it in Australia. We have seen the Sikh community being targeted in the United States. But what is happening now, this is something very, very dangerous and disturbing both. And also it is important to understand that the United States as a country is also going through an inflection point. There is an unmitigated, relentless, influx of illegal immigrants, which is happening in the United States. It is literally, which has gone out of control of the government of the United States. There are sanctuary cities and sanctuary states which have come up. Hundreds of cities are there which have become sanctuary cities for all these illegal immigrants. And of course, there is a trend of crime going up. And in that kind of a scenario, even the average American is far more vulnerable today, at least the perception is so, than probably what it was a decade back. So many Indians who are going to United States for the purpose of studying, many of them have this presumption that America is a very safe society. They'll get a great chance to perform, and the society will appreciate them. perhaps those things were true at one point of time, but today they may not be very true. They may have a lot of caveats associated with that. So I think for all those students who are going abroad, my simple suggestion is today the opportunities are far more in India than probably what it was a few decades back. And secondly, there are challenges of security in United States, general law and order situation. So in that kind of a scenario, they should actually be very careful and cautious and think before they go abroad to study. The rest is up to them. But I think these people who died were not reckless, were not rash. They were ordinary students and professionals who were just law-abiding, and yet they got targeted. So it is whether it is a deliberate targeting, which has seen a sudden surge in the last few months. That is something that has to be seen. But I think overall, United States, as I stated, is going through an inflection point. As a society, it is going to be far more vulnerable than it ever was. And so in general, lives are a little less secure there. And if especially the Indians are getting targeted, if there are reasons behind it, then it's a very disturbing trend. Back to you then.
Yes, it certainly is extremely disturbing. Of course, let me take that across. There is a pattern emerging with the spate of recent attacks in the US.
Thank you. It's great that a channel like you takes on itself the responsibility of repeatedly flagging such incidents, which are quite disturbing, which convey that our citizens in the United States, our ethnic group remains quite vulnerable. Whether the vulnerability is unique to India and Indians, or whether it's a part of the general pattern of insecurity and lawlessness and gun violence in the United States, is something that would need to be debated at a separate level. But the fact remains that our law-abiding and normal citizens in their prime of their lives have been cut short due to such random events, which, for the want of better description of a conspiracy, would have to be judged as something once in a while happens. Indian community has come to the notice of powers that be on the street for being above average in terms of average per capita income, in terms of being vulnerable, and in terms of our citizens being often mistaken for everything from Al-Qaeda to Latin Americans. Visually, mainstream Americans don't have enough knowledge to be able to distinguish between a proper legal immigrant who's adding value to United States society and to people who have become illegal immigrants for economic reasons, whom they have suspicions about. There is also an underworld which is pretty strong, comprising of all sort of misfits, from drug dealers to drug addicts, which populate United States inner cities. And this could be one of those stray incidents, but they're happening far too often for comfort of our nationals. And I think consulate in Chicago has done its duty. It can only put pressure on the United States authorities. The Homeland Security Secretary was here last week, and she was asked by media men about such incidents, and her reply was official, but wanted to assure Indians that everything possible is being done in this regard. We can only hope that once she gets back to the United States, she does have full intention of carrying out the word that she gave us here in Delhi. I think the fact also remains that law and order situation is sort of perturbance is further exacerbated by various quirks in United States law enforcement policy. The state government, county government, and federal government have their own policing, and the police themselves are inured by such violence as to be indifferent to it. As you said in your last program, the United States policeman was heard laughing at an Indian young lady's murder, overrun by a police officer's speeding car. So those are indications that the society remains in a peculiarly difficult place for a foreigner to navigate. And I would ditto my previous speaker's very thoughtful remark about not running the gauntlet of law and order related situation in the United States, not taking for granted that everything would be hunky-dory once you get your I-20 and student visa to that country.
Yes. Mijal Parihar, do you believe that the US is doing enough? Firstly, what do you make of this particular incident, and do you believe the US is doing enough, looking at this pattern that's emerging?
See, this particular incident may be a normal incident which can happen in a evening sites, some kind of a street incident, but I doubt whether it is something like that which has happened against the racism. I agree with my two predecessor eminent panelists that the Indian policies and growing Indian society abroad are definitely a threat to the various groups. And in US, there is an intolerance is gradually increasing against the Indians and their American societies, their compulsions in the political compulsions, geopolitical compulsions over and above this Pakistani's activities and Pannu's activities and the US government, how it has taken Nikhil Gupta case. Those are going definitely against the India, so far we are concerned. But I would say that our government has taken a right step to deal with at the diplomacy level, and overall we have to be very cautious those who are going, and as is mentioned earlier, there is a very thin line amount between the legal eminent immigrants and illegal immigrants. So Indians, as you grow in your status, obviously there will be something you have to face challenges. And present in America, I think the law and order is definitely disturbed after last elections, the way the politics is going on. There's a Biden and Trump and it is happening. So then how the India takes its stance with the Russia and Ukraine, that is another reason for the pressure tactics by the US agencies against India. Not that I'm directly linking this border case with that, but yes, the subsequent course of actions taken by US administrations to curb this kind of incidences or to take a deal with them immediately is definitely that complacency is visible in last 2 or 3 occasions which has happened. And let's see how the US administrations took this particular incident to deal with it, and the culprits are caught and taken due care.
All right, let me go back across to Pathikrit. Pathikrit, now what more should the US be doing? What more can we do to raise these incidents with the US further?
Uday, I'm sure the Ministry of External Affairs would definitely take up this issue and ask the government of United States to look into the matter. But I think you would get stereotyped replies and responses from United States that there is no specific motivation and there is no directed attack or targeting of Indian students. So I don't think you would see a very simple solution to this whole issue. I think it is going to go on for a long time. Also, as I stated and has been stated by the respected fellow panelist as well, that today in United States, for a long time, the American companies outsourced manufacturing to rest of the world. Today, there's a sheer void in United States so far as jobs are concerned, so far as the American people getting jobs, because most of them, because wokeism has completely destroyed the concept of family. So most parents do not take care of the education of their next generation beyond high school. So there is a lack of basic education or skilled education, so that which can actually sustain in terms of job creation, except for extremely bright few. So there is this disdain that they have for a lot of Indians and maybe others like the Chinese or Southeast Asians. So you might see this trend would only go up. And I foresee that in the next few years, you might see a reverse brain drain also continuing and starting, with a lot of people, if not for economic prospects, but also for security reasons, would prefer to come back. See, the basic ethos with which a country is run, based on the traditional concepts of philosophies, culture, value system. Unfortunately, wokeism and the whole concept of too much of liberalism, the whole destruction of the concept of family, eventually is creating a problem in the whole of West, and so United States is no exception. I'm sure the government of India would do what it can do. It would put all its weight behind the people who are staying abroad. But I think we also have to accept that there are limitations to what the EMEA can do in another country. So people need to be cautious. And as Ambassador also mentioned, don't presume that just because if you go abroad, your life is going to be better. It's going to get more tough for the West. As they've barely avoided a recession this time. So when they see that they're finding it difficult to make both ends meet, and there are people from another country coming and earning much more, it creates a lot of challenges. Illegal immigrants, as I stated, is creating another round of challenges. So there are compound complexities of problems in the United States. And my simple advice is, today in India, there are great opportunities coming up. I think this fascination and obsession to go abroad and getting educated in Canada and United States, from the school level, this obsession has to stop. Unfortunately, it is the schools which creates this peer pressure that till the time you go abroad and settle down there or do an education there, you are not considered successful. That is a myth today. That whole thing has no relevance. People have stayed back and have done excellently well. I am not against people going abroad and getting educated, but please consider your prospects and challenges before you go abroad, because you at times will be entirely on your own in a city where guns are more than the number of people, and anybody can, people with mental disorders get licensed with very easily to hold guns, and the whole system is so much against restrictions on guns, availability of guns. And that is a challenge. So what will you do in a society where people can indiscriminately get access to guns and then, shoot? And a society where a large number of people are on psychiatric medication. So a combination of access to guns, psychiatric medication, loneliness creates frustration, all kinds of mental problems, and resulting in all these kind of crimes, in addition to crimes which are of different dimensions. So, I think it's a bleak situation. And those who go abroad, their parents should think before they send them, look at the place, a particular state where they're going, and what is the security scenario. Don't presume that just because America is the largest army or the most sophisticated army means that they are very safe within the United States itself. Back to you there.
Yes, let me in fact take that across to Ambassador Sachdev as well. Obviously, he does have expertise in this matter. Is India doing enough? Are we raising this enough with the United States of America? And are they doing enough?
I think we are doing all that we can, but more steps can be contemplated. I think there should be an advisory issued about the security situation in the United States. It means Americans would not like it, but we owe it to our nationals planning to go there or being already there to have, first of all, a warning given that they should consider this aspect. Secondly, some kind of network should be created through which people can be informed of such incidents, violent or otherwise, and they can be looked after, rendered legal or consular assistance through such a network of dedicated phone lines, etc., etc. Thirdly, I think the local Indian networks need to be activated. They can at their own local level advise our nationals, our PIOs there to avoid certain areas on certain times, and they should then be forewarned about if anything of that sort has taken place. Now, these people, our people, are fairly influential there in their own ways, and they can lobby together in consonance with the consulate or embassy's lobbying, with the State Department or the local governorates, etc., to put pressure on the locals that this should not be allowed to pass. Such incidents are far too many, too often to be able to be ignored anymore.
Yes. Major Parihar, just, taking this across to you, now, obviously, the fact is that if this happened to American citizens in India, what, the kind of distinction would be on the US response, the kind of outrage. Similarly, Indian lives matter too, don't they?
Absolutely. In fact, I was thinking of the same line, because once you have a legal immigrant, either they are the tourist visa or the students are going there, visas or the NRI. They have been accepted by US governments and different states there. Then it is their responsibility to ensure that they are getting the proper environment for the purpose for their being they are in the US, and their security of their life and other immovable and movables is absolutely there. Suppose if it would have happened in any of our state, the US would have made such a UN trial. There, as the ambassador has mentioned about the advisory, they would have cited advisories with the remarks that don't visit this part of the India and that is not very safe and all. So obviously, when the US takes their life and their personal too seriously, we should take it, and our government has definitely, there is a definite paradigm shift in our approach to such kind of episodes and incidents. Government is becoming proactive. We have to be, and we have to make it very clear to the US in state terms, whether it's a small student is there or some other person is there. Their life is absolutely priceless so far we are concerned, has to be protected by them. And subsequent relations of the country depends upon such episodes should not take place. So though the government has taken right step, but I expect that government should be more proactive, and with a little loud message should be given to the US and the European countries where we are facing such more frequencies of occurrences.
Yes. Okay. I'm beginning to run out of time. Let me take that to Pathikrit on the way forward now. Pathikrit, how can we prevent further such incidents? Already there have been multiple deaths in the first 2 months of 2024 alone, Pathikrit. We all know what happened to Janvi. That verdict shocked us, of course, just now. But in the first 2 months of this year alone, there have been so many attacks, as I've just read out.
Well, Uday, Ambassador Sachdev succinctly brought out some extremely, proactive suggestions in terms of what can be done in terms of, sending out an advisory and creating these groups. But I think the simple thing that people can do is that when you are going out, please go out in groups rather than traveling alone or going out alone, especially at night. That is important. When you go out, please inform somebody where you are going, who you are going to meet. That is second. And third, I think, wherever people are staying, they should closely remain in contact with the local, concerned embassy of India or the consulate, wherever the nearest that is possible. And I think it's very important for people to understand Ambassador Sachdev rightly mentioned that if India brings out an advisory, it will be very prudent, but the Americans may not like it. Most important thing is that the whole of West, because of multitude of issues, and especially United States, is gradually going to be far more unsafe with time to come. So I think caution is more important than being far more, daredevilry or presuming that going abroad would add to my credence. That is not going to be. These bright young people who died had wonderful lives ahead of them. They died for no fault of theirs.
Yes.
There is a limitation to what even American government can do because the society itself is becoming bad.
Absolutely.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.